I need you to know something before I begin. What I'm about to tell you happened to me just months ago, and I still wake up some mornings wondering if it was all a nightmare. But the empty house, the legal documents, the recordings on my phone, they all remind me it was terrifyingly real. My name is Margaret. I'm 72 years old, a widow, a mother, and until recently, I believed I understood what family meant. I was wrong about so many things. It was 10 days before Christmas when everything changed. I had gone for my annual mammogram that afternoon. Nothing unusual, just routine screening I'd been doing for decades. The appointment finished earlier than expected. Traffic was light, and I found myself pulling into my driveway in Mesa at 3:10 in the afternoon, 2 full hours before anyone expected me home. I parked in the garage and sat there for a moment, feeling the familiar ache in my hips that comes with 72 years of living. The house was quiet as I let myself in through the laundry room door, slipping off my shoes on the mat I'd bought specifically so my daughter wouldn't complain about track dust. That's when I heard voices drifting down from upstairs, from my bedroom. Jenna's voice came first, bright and pleased, almost triumphant. She was saying something about how once I got emotional and confused, no judge would argue with guardianship. My hand found the doorframe to steady myself. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it everywhere. In my ears, in my throat, behind my eyes. Then Brad's voice joined in, lower but equally clear, discussing their plan for a dinner intervention, reading a letter from a doctor, getting the pastor to pray over me, making me look unstable while Jenna cried to convince witnesses. I stood, frozen in my laundry room, one shoe still on, coat half off, listening to my own daughter plan my public humiliation. They talked about the guardianship hearing being easy once they had their performance documented. Then Jenna said something that made my blood run cold. She talked about how once the court declared me incompetent, the house would be theirs, the bank accounts, everything. She said it was about time, that I'd been rattling around alone since my husband died, and they could finally live like adults once they put me somewhere safe. The house is ours. Those 3 words echoed in my head. This house I'd bought with my husband 40 years ago. The house where we raised our children, where I nursed him through his final illness. For 2 years I'd let Jenna and Brad live here rent-free after Brad lost his job. I'd paid their bills, covered their debts, refinanced my mortgage to clear their credit cards. And this was my reward. I backed away as quietly as I'd entered, made it to my car, and sat staring at the concrete wall. For 30 minutes, maybe longer. I couldn't think straight. Every memory felt poisoned now. Sewing her prom dress at 2 in the morning, signing the check for her nursing program, handing over my credit card when they were behind on bills. Every sacrifice I'd made felt twisted into something ugly. But then something shifted inside me. Not the crumbling kind of shift where everything falls apart. The opposite. Something clicked into place like a lock sliding home. They thought they were trapping me. They thought I was helpless. Fine, let them think that. They had no idea what I was capable of when I stopped pretending everything was okay. That evening I walked into my kitchen like nothing had happened. Jenna stood chopping carrots. Brad sat scrolling his phone. When Jenna asked about my appointment, I told her the doctor said I was boringly healthy. Brad commented that I looked tired. I smiled and told him I was just thinking about Christmas dinner, that it was going to be quite a night. He laughed, not understanding what I meant. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk with a yellow legal pad and did what I'd done my entire adult life as a bookkeeper. I made lists, assets, debts, timeline, options. The numbers were brutal but honest. 23 months of free housing at market rate came to over $41,000. Add the $6,000 for Brad's car, $3,500 in credit, card payments, $1,200 for their child's private school. The total was just under $52,000, and they were planning to stand in my dining room on Christmas Day, in front of my pastor and friends, reading a fake medical letter calling me confused and unsafe. I opened my fireproof safe and took out my deed. My name only. Mortgage paid off 10 years ago. I ran my fingers over the raised seal and made my decision. If they wanted the house would have to disappear. I circled December 23rd on my calendar, 2 days before their planned performance. I whispered into the quiet. They think I'm helpless. They have no idea. The next morning while they slept, I pulled out every document I owned. The deed with my name alone. Bank statements showing my pension and social security. The folder I'd started keeping 18 months ago with copies of every check I'd written them, every purchase I'd made on their behalf. I added it all up again. $51,840. That was the exact amount they'd taken while telling me they were keeping me company, as if I'd begged them to move in. I went upstairs to check my bedroom. Everything looked normal at first, but when I examined my safe, I saw faint scratches around the lock. Someone had tried to open it. In my dresser, the bottom drawer where I kept old photo albums and letters from my husband, things were slightly out of order. Jenna had been searching through my private things, probably looking for financial documents or proof she could use against me. I took pictures of everything with my phone. The scratches, the disorganized drawer. Evidence matters. Numbers matter. Proof matters. For 2 years I'd felt small in this house. Like I was in the way, like I should be grateful they were here. Every time I wanted to say something about unpaid bills or their mess, I swallowed it. I told myself to be patient, to be the bigger person. That version of me felt like someone from another lifetime. The woman sitting at my table now, making plans, was different. She'd been there all along. The bookkeeper who balanced numbers to the penny. The young mother who stretched paychecks when money was tight. The wife who managed household budgets for 40 years without bouncing a single check. I wasn't powerless. I'd just forgotten I had power. I made a new list. Get a lawyer specializing in elder law. Get medical proof of my competence. Secure my assets before they could file anything. Document everything. And the last item, the one that made my hand shake as I wrote it, disappear the house. If they couldn't take it, they couldn't win. I called the law offices of Linda Park. When I told the receptionist I needed protection from my own daughter, there was only a brief pause before she asked if I could come that afternoon. An hour later, I was sitting across from Linda Park herself, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, telling her everything. About standing in my laundry room hearing them plot. About the fake doctor's letter and Christmas dinner performance. About 2 years of living rent-free and $51,000 I'd spent supporting them while they undermined my confidence. Linda didn't interrupt. She took notes, and when I finished, she told me what I was experiencing had a name. Elder financial abuse. She explained the pattern. How they isolate you, make you feel dependent, undermine your confidence with small comments about your memory. They build a narrative that you're declining, that you need help. The finale, the public intervention, gets witnesses who'll testify you seemed confused and emotional. It supports their guardianship claim. My hands shook as she explained how guardianship could actually work if they moved fast enough. An emergency petition with a fake doctor's letter could get temporary guardianship while the case was evaluated. Once that happened, I'd lose access to everything. Fighting from inside the system would be 10 times harder than preventing it. Linda's strategy was simple. Move faster than they could. Right now I still had legal capacity, which meant I could make decisions about my property and finances. We'd use that window to protect everything before they filed. First, a cognitive evaluation from a neurologist she trusted. The report would be my shield. Second, we needed to talk about my assets. When she asked if I'd considered selling the house, the question landed like a stone. This was the place where I'd raised my children, where my husband died, where 40 years of memories lived in every room. But Jenna's voice echoed in my mind. The house is ours. If I sold it, they couldn't take it. Linda explained that with the right buyer, we could close in 2 weeks, maybe less. We'd find me a new place first, somewhere secure, move what I wanted to keep, and do it all quietly. They wouldn't know until it was done. Linda asked me pointed questions. Had I forgotten to pay bills? Bounced checks? Gotten lost driving? Struggled with medications or appointments? No to everything. She closed her notebook and looked at me directly. I wasn't the person they were describing. I was sharp, organized, completely capable. What I was experiencing wasn't decline. It was abuse. And I had every right to protect myself. She told me I wasn't losing control. I was taking it back. Something lifted when she said that. A weight I'd carried for 2 years. The weight of trying to be accommodating and grateful and easy to live with. I wasn't the problem. They were. Dr. Begley's office called the next morning with an appointment. The neurological evaluation lasted over an hour. He had me remember word lists, draw clocks, count backward by sevens, name objects, follow complex instructions. Every test came easily. My mind felt sharp, focused. He asked about daily tasks, finances, cooking, driving. I managed everything independently. When he asked why my daughter believed I was incompetent, I told him the truth. Because she wanted my house and money, and this was the easiest legal path. His final assessment was clear. I was performing at or above normal cognitive function for my age. My memory was excellent, reasoning clear, judgment sound. He saw no evidence of dementia, confusion, or impairment. Anyone claiming I was incompetent would have a very hard time supporting that in court. The official report would be ready the next afternoon. Susan Wilkins, the realtor, arrived at my house 2 days later. I'd made sure Jenna was at work and Brad had left for another supposed job interview. Susan was professional and direct. She photographed every room, checked the property, and an hour later showed me comparable sales. If we listed at $495,000 and made clear I was motivated, we'd have offers within 48 hours. I signed the listing agreement with trembling hands. Susan scheduled the first showing for that afternoon while the house was empty. I sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks away, watching the clock, terrified someone would come home early. But my phone stayed silent. The showing went perfectly. That night, Susan texted that the buyer was very interested and to expect an offer. The offer came at 9:30. Cash buyer, $480,000. Closing in 12 days on December 23rd. No inspection if I'd sell as is. It was $20,000 less than asking, but all cash with no contingencies and a closing date exactly where I needed it. I accepted immediately. For the next week and a half, I lived 2 lives. During the day, I played the confused old woman they expected, misplacing things on purpose, asking what day it was, letting Brad correct me even when I knew I was right. But when they were gone, I worked. I packed boxes and hid them in the garage. Photo albums, important documents, jewelry, my husband's medals, clothes, kitchen items. Everything fit into 12 boxes labeled donations, so if anyone saw them, they wouldn't question it. Linda found me an apartment in a senior community 15 minutes away. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, small kitchen. The lease started December 20th. I signed the paperwork and wrote a check for first and last month. My new home, a place they didn't know about, couldn't find, couldn't take. The closing happened on December 22nd. I told Jenna I had a doctor's appointment. Linda met me at the title company. 45 minutes of signing papers, page after page. Deed transfer, settlement statement, tax forms. When the title officer slid the final document across the table and asked if I was ready, I gripped the pen with both shaking hands, thought about Jenna saying the house would be theirs, and signed my name. I walked out with a cashier's check for $476,000. After fees and costs, that's what remained. The house was no longer mine, and it would never be Jenna's. I moved into my apartment that afternoon while they were both out. Movers loaded my 12 boxes and the furniture I was taking. By 5 o'clock, I was sitting in my new living room, exhausted but safe. This was mine, a place where no one could plot against me. But I wasn't finished. I sat at my new kitchen table and assembled documents into a manila envelope. The settlement statement proving the house was sold. Dr. Begley's evaluation proving I was competent. The revoked power of attorney. A timeline of every dollar I'd spent on them. And the recording I'd made on my phone, standing in my laundry room listening to them plan my destruction. I added one more thing. A letter I wrote by hand. I told Jenna I'd heard every word of her plan. I had recordings. I had proof. I'd protected myself in every legal way possible. The house was sold. My assets were secure. My competence was documented. She would not control me, manipulate me, or steal from me. This ended now. I told her I'd raised her to be better than this, that I'd loved her more than my own life. But love without respect was just need. I would not be used anymore. I sealed the envelope and drove back to my old neighborhood that night. Through the window I could see them on the couch watching television, probably still planning their Christmas dinner performance. I let myself in through the laundry room door one last time, climbed the stairs quietly, and placed the envelope in my bedroom dresser where I knew Jenna would find it. Standing in that room for the last time, I felt grief rise sharp and sudden. Not for the house, for my daughter, for the child I'd raised who'd grown into someone I didn't recognize. But this wasn't about me. This was about her choices, her greed, her willingness to hurt someone who loved her. I hadn't failed as a mother. She'd failed as a daughter. I whispered into the quiet, "Merry Christmas, Jenna," then walked out of that house for the last time. Christmas morning, I woke in my new apartment at 7:30, sunlight streaming through new curtains. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then memory settled and I remembered. I was free. I made coffee, the kind I liked, strong and black. No one to tell me it was too early or too strong. I put on Christmas music and sat looking out at the courtyard. Normal people living normal lives. I was one of them now. The first call came at 11:47. Jenna's name lit up my screen. I let it ring through. No voicemail. 10 seconds. Later it rang again. On the third call I answered. Her voice was bright but strained when she asked where I was, saying everyone was waiting. The pastor had arrived. Guests were in the living room. I told her calmly to go upstairs to my bedroom, top dresser drawer, and open the envelope while we were on the phone. I heard movement, footsteps, voices in the background. All those people waiting for the show she'd planned. A door opened. The drawer slid. She found the envelope and opened it. Silence stretched 15 seconds. Then her voice came back smaller, confused, saying the papers showed I'd sold the house 3 days ago, that it didn't make sense. I told her it made perfect sense. She should keep reading. More rustling as she pulled out page after page. The settlement statement, the neurologist's report, the revoked power of attorney. Her voice rose in panic, asking where they were supposed to live, what they would do. I asked her a simple question. Your house? That house was never yours. It was mine. My name on the deed. And yes, I sold it because I heard her planning to take it from me. She tried to deny it, but I cut her off. I told her I'd stood in my laundry room 10 days ago and heard every word. The fake doctor's letter, the Christmas dinner intervention, the guardianship petition. I heard her and Brad planning to humiliate me in front of everyone downstairs so they could declare me incompetent and steal everything. Dead silence. Then Brad's voice demanded to know what was happening. The phone shifted to speaker. He tried to sound reasonable, claiming they were just concerned that I'd been forgetting things. I asked if that's what he called it, managing my affairs, or managing to steal my house while pretending to care. Brad insisted they had rights, that they'd been living there 2 years. I told him the truth. It was my house, my property, my legal right to sell whenever I wanted. They were guests who never paid rent, never contributed, and apparently spent their time plotting to have me declared incompetent. Jenna came back desperate, saying they'd already filed paperwork, talked to a lawyer, that selling the house just proved I wasn't thinking clearly. I stopped her cold. In that envelope she'd find Dr. Begley's evaluation documenting my perfect mental health, the revoked power of attorney, a timeline of every dollar I'd spent, $51,840, all documented. I was the victim, not her. Brad's voice hardened, threatening to fight it, to tell a judge I was manipulated. I asked what evidence he had. The fake letter from a doctor who never examined me, or maybe the recording I'd made of them planning this entire scheme. The silence that followed was absolute. Jenna's whisper asked if I'd recorded them. I confirmed it. Arizona is one-party consent. The recordings were completely legal. Linda had copies. The court would have copies if they tried to file anything. Every word they'd said, every detail of their plan, all documented. Something crashed. In the background, glass breaking. Brad came back angrier, insisting no judge would believe a 72-year-old woman did all this alone. I reminded him I'd been a bookkeeper for 30 years. I'd managed finances, investments, tax returns. I wasn't confused. I was someone who finally woke up to what they were doing. Jenna made a sound between a sob and gasp, trying to claim they were just worried. I finished her sentence for her. They thought I'd be easy to control. They thought they could manufacture a crisis, humiliate me publicly, have me declared incompetent before I knew what hit me. They thought wrong. Voices downstairs grew louder. The pastor asking if Jenna was coming down. Someone mentioning dinner was getting cold. I told her to send the guests home, tell them I was sick. Whatever story made her look good. But never again tried to take my life while smiling in my face. Jenna's voice cracked asking where they'd go, saying they had kids, nowhere to turn. I reminded her they were both in their 30s with college degrees, working legs, functioning brains. They'd figure it out like I did at 21 with a baby and no help. She started to protest, but I cut her off. The moment she decided I was an obstacle instead of a person, the moment she chose greed over respect, she made her choice. Now she could live with it. My thumb moved to the end call button. My voice was steady and cold. You should not have tried to ruin me. I hung up and blocked her number. The apartment was quiet again. My Christmas album still played softly. Silent night, holy night. I sat at my table looking out at the courtyard, at palm trees swaying in the December breeze, at the world continuing like nothing had happened. Somewhere across town, my daughter stood in a house that no longer belonged to me, holding papers proving her plans had turned to dust. And I was here, safe, free, whole. I picked up my coffee and took a long, slow sip. It tasted like victory.